First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, the Ruah, and a sincere salutation to you, Akim, and you, Aqua, that believe in all sincerity. So as you see here on your screen, it says the C theory of data centers. And through the Spirit, and we spoke on this past Saturday. And I think it's very thought-provoking. It's something that, we should, go over again. Okay, so let's read this, and Lord willing, this will be edifying. It says, across the country, a growing number of people believe D-centers are part of a hidden agenda, draining resources, enabling total surveillance, and consolidating power. Let's break down the theory. It says, they drain our water. These centers use massive amounts of water for cooling, stealing it from communities and drying up the land. They consume extreme power. They are said to overload the electrical grid, causing higher bills and risking blackouts. They enable total surveillance. These centers are believed to store and process everything you do, fueling a system of mass tracking and control. And that's the big one. They serve a hidden elite built by tech giants and shadowy investors to consolidate power and push an agenda without public consent. They are part of the smart grid linked to 5G, IoT and smart cities to create a digital prison and control how we live. Okay, the real history COINTELPRO. It says the U.S. government has a long history of manipulating information and turning public opinion through programs like COINTELPRO. In 1956 to 1971, COINTELPRO counterintelligence program was used by the FBI to infiltrate, disrupt, discredit, and destroy political organizations, activists, and movements. Tactics include spreading disinformation, fake news, forging documents, wiretapping, harassment, and even inciting violence. The goal was to control narratives, divide communities, and silence anyone who challenged the status quo. Today, many believe similar tactics are used online, planting seeds of fear and confusion to distract, divide, and keep the public from seeing what's really happening. Okay? Wow, I could barely read that. And it says, what can you do? Which really, the only thing you can do is believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay? So, as you see here, and you even see there's a picture of one right there in the corner in the top right. These D centers are huge. I'm actually working at one. And, like I spoke at, camp, there's generators, okay? As far as the eye can see, these warehouses or these buildings are massive. They have no windows, okay? And yeah. They store and process, it says here, everything you do, fueling a system of mass tracking and control. Check this out. Every time you type a prompt into ChatGPT, a D center somewhere evaporates fresh water just to stop the servers from overheating. Not metaphorically, physically. Real water, gone. A conversation of 20 to 50 questions consumes roughly 500 milliliters of fresh water. Microsoft's water consumption spiked 34% in a single year as AI expanded. These are not abstract numbers. They are liters pulled from rivers, aquifers, and reservoirs. By 2028, AI D-centers are projected to consume over 1 trillion liters of water annually. You think you are using a free tool? You are paying with the planet's most critical resource. Okay, so these things use a lot of water. That's what we're doing. We're plumbing, all right, the water to these D centers. And like I said, through the Spirit, I was looking, at this D center, in and out. I was looking, throughout the premises, and I couldn't help but think, how odd They're very strange. Working under the security is odd too. You know, there's beefed up security to work there, even at TSMC, which is Taiwan something microchips or something to that effect. All right, Intel is out here in Arizona as well. So yeah, these D centers, man, they're something else. Okay. And there's massive amount of water that is being used to cool these systems, man. Okay, and as it says here, they serve a hidden elite built by tech giants and shadowy investors to consolidate power, push an agenda without consent. Again, to the right, they're part of the smart grid linked to 5G, IoT, and smart cities to create a digital prison, control how we live. We see a digital prison, which they're about to make you pay for being online. You're gonna have to get jacked into the system, and it's not with money. Okay, they're going to push that AI, that 6G. They're gonna, technology is increasing. It's developing rapidly. Okay, and all this is for what? To push the MOTB. Okay, they need these big old plants, to make chips and to fuel their system, their image, man. Okay, so it's something that worthy of speaking on. This is and they're working, they're working, and see here it is where Jake is employed at these places. So we are in the worst case scenario, and these devils, they're for sure they're working 100%, while people is taking their grace period for granted and just doing the most through the spirit. We need to be informed, okay, because this devil is making moves. They're building. Okay, matter of fact, what's the scripture? Escapes me. Bear with me. This is Malachi 1:4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness. And since, they were in a low state, all they wanted to do is to build, to come back from that low state, because Esau, was the original caveman. Okay. He was in subject under King David at one point. Jake ruled the world, man. That's that's what they don't want to teach in schools. But see, he would ultimately, have his time to reign. Okay. And the wicked, they're gonna do wickedly. Okay. The Heavenly Father, only he who let will let until he be taken out of the way. So, it's in Esau's heart of hearts to build, man, to come back from the ashes, so to speak, but they're going to be destroyed. Okay, it says, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus say the Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. Okay, because here it is. They say that water's drying up out here in the southwest. Okay, of Babylon, or in the west, and only for it to be used in these D centers, or only for, for you to have to pay for it. Okay. They got money, okay, for these centers, but they don't have money for the poor. There's no water for the poor, and that's the mindset of Esau, man. Malachi 1:4. NLT, Esau's descendants in Edom may say, we have been shattered, but we will rebuild the ruins. But Yahweh of heaven's armies replies, they may try to build, but I will demolish them again. Their country will be known as the land of wickedness, and their people will be called the people with whom Yahweh is forever angry. Okay? Because they do have a hidden agenda. You know, they need these power plants, you know, these centers, you know, to you know, fuel their chips, okay, and the system that is gonna make them operate. You know, for what? To enslave, you know, man, woman, and child. That's what these devils' mindset is, man. That's why they're the border of wickedness. The Lord sees what they're doing. You know, and you know, through the Spirit, you know, something that I was pondering on too is that divide between the rich and the poor is widening, because now follow me, in the construction world, they're leaning towards these big jobs, these big data centers, these, you know, and they're moving away from commercial. They're moving away from these other type of jobs, you know, and you know, the only people that are making, you know, real money or you know, significant amount are the people that are working at these places. Okay, like especially like union. All right, all non-union is you know, stuck to these commercial sites and you know, smaller type jobs. So you're starting to see it. Okay, and you know, with the influx of you know, technology, a lot of people are going to be out of a job as well. You know, that's not what that's something that they're not telling you, because as AI increases and these robots start coming out off the assembly line, okay, you're going to start to see less people, you know, working. You know, AI is going to really change the world. Okay, this 6G, you know, this system that they're about to unleash upon the world is about, you know, to make a lot of people be unemployed, truth be told. And what they've always told people, that construction was for you know, people that have a record or people who are uneducated, was a big lie. Because, you know, plumbers and electricians, these are going to be the highest sought jobs and the highest paying. You know, because, you know, basically robots can't do certain construction jobs, and that's just the truth. All right, but that's just from, you know, looking at things, you know, through the construction world, you know, the eyes of you know, an individual, which myself is looking through, you know, as far as this you know, what I'm seeing. Okay, hopefully this is making sense, because you know, when you're non-union or whatever the case, like, no, these wages ain't going up. So only those who are basically jacked in the system, okay, which, you know, if you got a good paying job, and it's to build some type of federal institute, federal building or whatever the case, you know, not to say that that's wicked, because I'm gonna tell you like this, man, ultimately the Lord's gonna destroy it. It tells you right here. You know, so in other words, either you're gonna work for the system and be with the system or not. And those that are not are not making money, and they're definitely not gonna survive the market. If you follow me, if you're following what I'm saying, this is just something that I'm seeing through the Spirit. You know, so, you know, these Esau's working, man. Okay, he's, you know, trying to, you know, perform his enterprise. It says here, this is Job chapter 5 and 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. And ultimately, the Lord's going to disappoint the devices of these crafty devils, because these devils are smart, man. They're smart to build these big, huge buildings. And there's another one being built in Peoria. Okay, there's another D center. I forget where it's at, but they said it's huge as hell too. Super. You're talking about super buildings, man. These buildings are huge, man. You know, and the electricity and the water to power these places, it's like, for what? You know, what are you building is so massive? And if you're not working at these plants, you know, then what are you doing? And that's something that I'm just seeing in the spirit. Like, this devil is changing the world, quote unquote, right before our eyes, okay? Only to what? To be destroyed, because it says he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. It says NLT, he traps the wise in their own cleverness so their cunning schemes are thwarted. And ultimately, the Heavenly Father is going to disrupt this. Okay? Job 20 and 23. When he is about to fill his belly, well, let's go up. Job 20 and 22, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him, because, you know, they think they're going to get off with their NWO. They think they're going to get off with their AI. Okay, they're going to be able to chip everyone and have this new AI, reset. Okay, but it's going to be chaos, because there's going to be people out of work. Okay, there's going to be people in those re-education camps. There's going to be people living off the grid. You know, people being basically put in them guillotines. Okay, Esau think, you know, he's getting away. But in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. You know, and Esau think he ate. Okay, with this 6G, with this system that he's about to unleash. You know. What did this do? Kill Gates? Was it Kill Gates? He said what? Jesus-like miracles. Okay? People who never walked are going to walk. People who can't speak are going to speak. The blind are going to see. You know, they think they have the technology, okay, to merge man and machine. You know? And they show you this in movies like Minority Report. You know, that new Running Man. You know, the police state where there's police on every corner. They look like Starship Troopers. Okay. Cameras everywhere. You got to watch what you say, because Big Brother's watching you. I mean, these devils think that they're about to get it in. Okay. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bolt of steel shall strike him through. Yeah. Yahweh Bashim Mashai is going to rain terror upon these devils, man. Okay. That's why that fervent heat is coming. That's why that Third World War, so they can destroy themselves with their own craftiness, with their own dealings. You know. You know, I mean, Most High is cold, man. You know, he gonna use them as puppets to destroy each other. Talking about the heathen. You know, a battle for world domination in which they're going to come to find out, you know, that the Most High and Yahweh Shai and the angels are going to come down and rain upon them. Okay? In the midst of war. You know, chariots are going to come through. Psalms 33 and 10, that Yahweh bringeth the counsel of the heathen to naught. He maketh the devices of the people of none effect. Right? You know, all this enterprise, you know, that they're, you know, endeavoring upon is going to come to none effect, man. Their MOTB, okay, even the persecution of the saints, even coming for the those that believe in Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai, that even that's going to come to naught. Okay, because Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai has the souls of those that believe in him in his hand. Okay, so just, you know, something to think upon. All right, because this devil's not going to win. Although he's working and he's doing his thing right under everyone's nose. You know, we gonna read these scriptures, man. This is the counsel of Yahweh standeth forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. Right. Psalms 21. For they intended evil against thee. They imagined a mischievous device, which they are not able to perform. Right. They're not going to be able to perform. They're not going to be able to perform, okay, this NWO. It's going to come to naught. All right. And although they plot against you, their evil schemes will never succeed, right? They're not going to succeed, man. You know? And through the Spirit, you know, hey, we're encountering it. We're seeing it with our own eyes. But the Lord, they're going to build, but the Lord's going to throw down. Okay? The Lord's going to throw down, just like Pharaoh was built up, only to be destroyed. Okay? So, Lord willing, this was edifying. It's just something on my spirit, something I've been thinking about, you know, something that I'm foreseeing. I'm seeing what this devil's doing with my own eyes. And I know through the Spirit, Yahweh Hashem Mashai is about to destroy these devils and everything they're trying to build. Their whole enterprise, their whole NWO scheme is going to come to naught. You know? So, again, Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Shem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well, and a sincere salutation to you, Akim, and you awkward to believe in all sincerity. Shalom.